Hey, everybody. Today I have for you podcast number 015. And today's podcast is titled When the Levy Breaks. Hey, everybody. Welcome to this week's edition of your weekly Limitless Life Network podcast. I am Dr. Pete Lombardi, and this is the Limitless Life Network, where we flesh out the limitations that are preventing you from reaching your goals and living the life that you deserve. This podcast is for you if you want to live a life with less limitations and more freedom with a healthier mind, body, and spirit. And the Limitless Life Network brand was born out of the scripture in Ephesians 3:20, which reads, "Now to him who is able to do immeasurably more than all we ask or imagine, according to his power that is at work within us." And I really want to help you to recognize and tap into that limitless power that is at work within you. And today's episode is titled When the Levy Breaks. And I know that it's the title of a song that goes back a few years, but it's not what the whole podcast is about. It's actually about a story that happened to me. It's actually a true story. Back in 2017, out of nowhere, I suffered a pretty significant injury to my right arm, which is my dominant arm, in an accident that I had, not a car accident, but I was doing something very physical, and I tore my right bicep off of the lower part of my arm. So that kind of sucked. And the challenge with that is in my profession as a chiropractor, I was not able to really do any work that way. So, I did for a while, and then anyway, I ended up having to go through surgery, and it was a trial because post-surgery, it's like 12 weeks of healing, and it was a long road to recovery. But this podcast is not so much about my incident as much as the lessons that I gleaned from this one unexpected event that happens. Like, I didn't wake up that day knowing what was going to go down, and in my wildest dreams, when I went to bed that night, I had no idea what I was in store for and what the future held. Like, could I even, continue on? I didn't know how bad the injury really was and what it really meant. So point number one is the unexpected will happen. And anybody that's lived any length of time on this planet has found out that throughout life, you will have events that happen that are well beyond your control. You never plan for them. And the only thing you have to do is to handle them and deal with them. Fact. Just, you got to deal with it. So that's point number one, is just realize, accept it, that unexpected things will happen. And for the most part, when these things begin to happen in your life, early on in your life, it seems like it's a massive deal, and it creates a lot of anxiety, fear, worry. All these crazy emotions crop up in your head. You start to create these stories and these scenarios that may never even happen. But bottom line is, the event's over. It's done. You got to handle it, and you got to deal with it. Now, this is just a simple injury situation, but other unexpected things are much more dramatic, much more serious, much more significant. It could be the loss of a loved one, like a very close loved one, somebody you're very dependent upon, a parent, a sibling, a spouse. Those I do not want to underplay. Those are very, very significant moments, and they can take years and years of healing. I know when I was 16, I lost my mother to cancer, and that took me, I think, at least 10 years to heal from, to understand and heal from the wounds and the misery and the sadness and the depression that I felt. And I tried all these different other ways to cope and deal with it. But probably 10 years. But the bottom line is that you have to handle it. So point number two is really, tragedy or triumph, victim or victory. It becomes a choice. It really ultimately comes down to you have a choice to become just a victim of the circumstance and complain about it, lament about it, and talk about it in a very sad and downtrodden way, or you can turn the tables, flip the script, and decide, you know what, I am not letting this get the best of me. No matter what happens going forward, this is going to be a victory. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, maybe not in the next couple weeks or months or even years, but somehow this is going to turn into a triumph, not a tragedy story. So that itself takes some serious mental strength and discipline. It is a choice, and you have to draw upon more strength than just your own personal strength. It takes more than that, and I got to say that it comes down to point number 3 is a big part of it, and that has to do with this story that I heard years and years ago, probably 25 years ago. I heard this story, and it was from a very wise man, and he was speaking to a large audience, and he told this story of a significant baseball game that meant everything. It was a championship baseball game, and it was the bottom of the 9th. I'm not a baseball fan. That doesn't matter. Bottom of the 9th, bases loaded, game is tied. There's 2 outs, full count, the pitch, right? The guy hits a ground ball to the shortstop. The shortstop fires the baseball to the catcher at the home plate. The runner slides, the tag is made, and the umpire stands there and doesn't say anything. And so the runner gets up and said, "Am I safe?" And then the catcher throws his mask up and he says, "He's out, isn't he? I got him." And the umpire still doesn't say anything. The coaches go crazy. They come out of the dugout. The team's empty out. What is it? What is it? What is it? And the umpire lifts his mask and he said, "It ain't nothing until I call it." And that's it. This idea of it ain't nothing till you call it, it goes to even the saying by Henry Ford. If you ever know one of his famous quotes was, whether you think you can or whether you think you can't, you're right. And that is, you have to monitor what you say. Your self-talk, how you speak, the words that you choose, literally determine your heading. They determine the course in which you're following. So from that moment of hearing that story, that really spoke to me, that it ain't nothing until I call it. What does that mean? What was this guy getting at? It ain't nothing until you call it. He was getting at, if you call it a miserable outcome, it's just a bad story you're dealt, a bad hand. Yeah, that's what you got. You got a bad hand. So what? What are you going to do with it? Right? So what? What are you going to do with it? If you call it an opportunity, then it's an opportunity. If you call it a chance to make a difference, a chance to lead people, a chance to show people, then that's what it's going to be. But if you call it just an awful injury and it's really hard, I talked to a guy today about losing weight, and he's like, "Oh, it's so hard. My kids, they tell me one thing, they think I'm crazy for trying this diet. And they say I got to eat these things, and I'm not eating them because I don't believe in that. But boy, they make it so hard." And I'm like, it's hard if you say it's hard, but it's also easy if you say it's easy. You have to decide what you want it to be. And he looked at me. He said, "You're right. You're absolutely right." But don't we get caught in that moment? We maybe know that that's the way we should be thinking, but we're all human, and we get caught in that moment where we just want to have our own little pity party and talk about how hard it is. But that just makes it more difficult for you. You may think you need that break to just kind of vent and let it out. I don't think you do need it. I think you just need to keep feeding your mind that positivity. And that myself, that in my experience with the tragedies and the things that I've dealt with in my life, what's carried me through is just trusting in the fact that, you know what, God's going to make this work. And I trust that more than anything. And, bottom line is that there's limitations. And that's point number 4. We all have limitations. Like my body has healed itself my entire life, right? When I was 47 years old having this injury, I'd never had a doctor do anything to my body. I'd never had any procedure that was necessary to be done to me. I'd never taken any medications or anything my entire life. And at this point, here I was. This muscle was never going to come down my arm and reattach itself to the bone. It was a limitation. There's a limitation of matter as to what the human body could physically without assistance. And so we have limitations in life. We all will face limitations. And it may not just be physical limitation. It may be knowledge-based limitation. There's certain people that I'm not an accountant. You don't wake me up and ask me a detailed questions, but I know call an accountant that knows stuff that I don't know, and I'm willing to pay for that information. Just willing to pay for a really good surgeon to attach that tendon to my arm. So when we all have limitations, the best way to overcome limitations is to either hire somebody or involve the people that can help you through that. When we try to just figure it out ourselves or bury deep down and pretend it doesn't exist, and I'll just tough it out. There's nothing wrong. Yeah, I'm just gonna deal with myself. That doesn't work. Because limitation always lingers. The longer it lingers, you're less of who you could be. But by bringing somebody else into the party, bringing else into the fold, you've got the opportunity for beyond your own limitations and carry yourself further. I can't tell you the number of people this past talked about. They said that talked to me about that. They mentioned these are successful business people. One of the best pieces of advice I give somebody that's new in business would be to quickly, as quick as possible, find people that and surround yourself with the people. Hire this out to the things that you're not good at. In other words, really focus all your time and energy. Figure out a way yourself and your time and your energy on the things that you do great, and everything else. Hire it out, farm it out, somebody else to do it for you and pay them for that. Obviously, try to be a one man band does it all, because it's super limited. All right, and brings us to point 5. And when I say this, I'm going to tell you right out, you're probably not going to know what I'm talking about. But it's another great a bit of a story behind it. And point number 5 is no one breaking into your house. no one is breaking into your house to your garbage cans. And the point behind the story is, what do people break into other homes for? What are people looking to steal? They're stealing values. They're not stealing your garbage cans. They're not saying, "Where's your garbage? I have your garbage cans." They're not doing that. Instead, they're looking for things of great, the shiny objects, the things that required a lot of their skill or knowledge to attain, and maybe something of wealth, whatever. You know what they break into a house for. So this really is of how I'm off, right? So in the middle of a tragedy, and how you handle a difficult situation is really what we'll see about your own character and who you are. So I often think like this is an opportunity to display a greatness that is coming through me. I'm not saying I'm great. I'm saying there's some greats within all of us. If I can remove the interference to the expression of the true beauty of any human being, right? But myself, which if I my own ego and all that other crap out of the way to unveil the beauty of the humans that God's given me, to me that is super attractive. And you've heard people talk about the attraction, right? And that was a whole thing about the law of attraction. If you think about it, come into your life, right? Well, it's kind of true. But, there's also a four-letter word called work that I also had involved in that process too. How do you want to be remembered? Like in other words, how do you want your presence to be received by others? Now I'm not saying I want to impress people. That's not the point. I'm trying to impress people, but by being the best version of yourself, it should literally be that's noticeable on the outside by others in a very positive way. And you've been around people, those people that make you feel good. They're like, I just really, there's something about that person that I just I admire, or there's something about them that's just great. And that's what I'm really trying to get at is express your true essence in difficulty, in times of tragedy and of challenge, when unexpected happens. How do you handle it? Do you come off as like you blew a gasket and the sky is falling, chicken scenario, or do you do it with grace, with poise, with a smile on your face, and with positivity oozing from your pores? I mean, we're in the middle, maybe, right? But how about aspiring to the latter, right? That's really what I'm trying to come across here, because and the litmus test, if it's happening or if you're able to accomplish this is hear from others. I just really like being around you. It's about being here, and you'll hear those positive. How come you're always so happy? What is it about you? Do people ever say that? Why? You're just always so positive. You're always so upbeat. Do you ever have a bad day? People ask me that quite often, and I'm not bragging to say that, but the honest answer is I can have a bad day, but I choose not. Right? Like bad things, but it doesn't mean that your whole day has to be bad. And it's not there's a bad circle. You may have something heavy in your life that's like weighing on you, but it doesn't have to rule you. That's the difference, right? You can let it rule you, and everybody will totally understand. They will totally understand. Like, that's exactly what most people would do, is they would let something really deep, rule their day and control their emotions and how it would go. Or you can draw upon strength. You can rise up above it and say, you know what? I'm still gonna press. I'm still gonna press forward. I'm still to put a smile on my face. And I tell you, I had people in my life that were able to do that in a way that maybe it wasn't like all on smiles or anything, but back my father, he was very steady in the midst of a storm. And he wouldn't say a lot, but he'd stay even keeled. I'd come home and be like, Dad, I got some bad news. Got a ticket. I'd be feeling terrible to tell him about this. I'm a young driver. I got a ticket, or I did something off, a teenager, and I'd have to come home between my legs and tell him. And he would he wouldn't flip out. And a lot of people just flip out. What he would do is he would just be like, all right, well, you shouldn't do that, right? Yeah, I know. Do now. That's for sure. And he's like, it's going to cost you. And so, he handled it. He realized that I felt bad enough, and it was time to move on. So anyway, I think I point home, and I hopefully that helps you. That helps you to in your own life, because it's the guarantee is you will have unexpected things come down your path, and hopefully there's not too many too off. But sometimes they hit real quick and real fast and real often. So they're pretty heavy. So I pray and hope that this is a source of inspiration, and this is going to be recorded, and hopefully it works out good this week because we've had some bills this week. But I just that you get something from it anyway. That's all we have for this week's edition for your weekly Limitless Life Network, and tune in each and every week for this podcast, and keep getting inspired and moving toward your best, stripping away your limitations.